And look at me catching that microphone before it actually becomes an issue. Welcome, 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 ladies and gentlemen, to the PUBG Mobile Ivy League's Females Professional Tournament. We are entering Phase 3, and this is Day 1. We got 5 rounds of action, mayhem, and strategy coming your way today. But first and foremost, for those of you who aren't quite acquainted as to who I am, I'm RedEyes, your ever-lovable and adorably cuddly caster, bringing you that daily dosage of butt-kickery, tomfoolery, and all-around shenaniganism. And we do have a stacked lobby for you today, boys and girls. If you look at the left side of the screen, you will see a permanent slot list. We got XTREME Ice, Tres Ranchos, The Witchers, Darkside Knights, GTHESIS Esports, HEARZ Esports, DEEPGROUND, Phantom Reborn, Galactics, Extreme Slayers, LUNOX. We got Elevate ABG, Gucci, and Queens Esports. So I'm expecting nothing but action right off the bat, ladies and gentlemen. As you already know, we are kicking things off with the very first map ever introduced to the game. I am, of course, speaking of Erangel. Now, what do we need to say about a map like Erangel? Essentially, it's the first map ever introduced to the game itself, so it's the one that our players should be most acquainted with, and it's the perfect middle ground between Miramar and Sanhok because it offers both the long distance, you know, sniper intensive distance combat as well as these close quarter clustered areas for that more CQC intensive combat as well. So you get the kind of the best of both worlds. And here we're already seeing the first zone, and it is not by any means going to be ideal for our participants. It is definitely going to have a good chunk of it being occupied by water, and almost, well, I'd say maybe 5 or 6 teams actually in the current new zone as of yet. Already, we're catching eyes on members of Extreme Ice, and you can tell that they're in very close proximities to members of Darkside Knights. Now, it looks like Extreme Ice has just getting out of dodge, getting to a position of safety to actually acquire that early game loot before engaging in anything serious, and understandably so. Just have a brief look here at this map, maybe a little bit closer. I do see members of Extreme Slayers not far off from Team 7, which is, of course, GTHESIS Esports, and we can see Tokyo on the alt feed already readily equipped with that Tommy gun, but no helmet to speak of. So definitely trying to get a little more properly looted before engaging in the altercations. Do want to just have a brief hunt around here just to make sure we don't miss anything right off the bat. Catching eyes on Darkside Knights, and you can see it's a little bit of a split between some of the members here. Everyone's just trying to get properly looted. It's that early game, match 1 energy here. Everyone's playing a bit cautiously. To be expected in you know, heavily weighted tournaments, and especially on the larger maps. And larger maps are going to be 4 out of the 5 that we're working with today, so you can expect moments of downtime and pockets of silence. But anyone who's ever seen me commentate ever knows my spiel. A more passive early game will, in fact, translate to a more action-packed and climactic mid or in-game, so it's going to be worth the trade if you ask me. We just got to exercise a little bit of patience. All right. Well, while I get everything set up on the alt feed here, I would love to know who everyone's rooting for in chat. Be sure to let me know. Yeah, as you can see, J8 here just trying to get that early game loot, but coming in on the bottom side of the map, you can see just a sliver of Team 12 there. Just to get an idea of how far away they actually are. I think they might have a little bit more space. Yeah, Extreme Slayers, Tokyo, and Marzi got a good bit of distance and some geography to block their line of sight on members of GTHESIS, so I'm not too overly concerned about staying tuned into that at this particular moment. I am going to catch eyes on Novita this is going to be a Phantom Reborn here. Novita trying to acquire a vehicle, but not too far off in proximity from members of Galactics just beneath. Doesn't look like Novita or the remainder of Phantom Reborn is all too concerned with taking on that early game altercations. It's going to be a long day, ladies and gentlemen. As I said, we do have 5 rounds of action, mayhem, and strategy coming your way today, so you can bet our participants are playing for the marathon, not a sprint. Every move counts, and especially when there's money on the line. Yeah, it doesn't seem like we're going to miss anything just yet, as to be expected in the early stages. Just everyone's going to get properly looted. We are seeing a little bit of a cluster forming here out in the distance. Looks like I may have misplaced my highlighter. Yeah, nothing really going to happen there just yet. We'll go over and check in on Extreme Slayers, particularly on Martzi, as he finds himself rotating northbound, for some reason northbound, in the hospital area, getting a little closer to GTHESIS, but I think that may have just been him glancing around, surveying the scene, maybe just getting some scouting info. I doubt that he's actually going to stray too far from the path in this case. Now, just give me this moment here to get this highlighter repositioned. Transform, center on screen. There we go. We got it back. Okay. Yeah, we're not actually going to keep it like that color here. Don't think that there's going to be much on the field just yet. So it's a little bit of a battle of patience, especially, you know, for teams like Tres Ranchos. As you can see, Tres Ranchos kind of playing the deli meat in this peanut butter and truffle sandwich, and the bread would, of course, be Queen's Esports and the southbound threat in Darkside Knights. But as of yet, it's just a waiting game. A little bit of a standoff. You can also see members of Phantom Reborn potentially coming in to add to this little bit of cluster pressure here between members of Tres Ranchos and Darkside. I don't see it really affecting too much of the play for members of, let's say, Queen's Esports, or even maybe the Eastbound Threat and DEEPGROUND, but I do see it being fairly problematic if a team like Darkside Knights is not expecting it. So for that reason, I'm actually going to go tune in to Darkside just to see if we can catch their angle, see if they have any sort of scouting information about this. And as you can see, Geo a ways away from his team. Everyone's just sort of running around, fairly separated from one another. Moni's with a teammate, but in a 2-1-1 split, I don't know how I feel about that, especially at this stage. And speaking of splits, getting eyes on members of DEEPGROUND entering this match as a three-piece, coming in with less firepower, less team power, less assistance, already at a weakened position from the get-go. It is kind of concerning to see this little split here from the remainder, I guess their last teammate here, off in the distance, Carol. Oh, Carol's in front. There's a member behind. Okay, I withdraw my previous statement. I thought it was a 2-1 split. Apparently, they are sticking together here. And they darn well should as a three-piece. And as you can see, trouble is already in the mix here. We've got members of GALACTICS already showing up. 2 members of GALACTICS already here on the map, just to get an idea. Switching to Carol's perspective just for a brief moment. Yeah, it does seem like they're... Here we go. We got Menu holding off and firing away in a situation where the enemies in GALACTICS have a real opportunity to outnumber him. And I'm not so sure if I agree with this sacrificial lamb tactic here that Menu is implementing. If it's not intentionally a sacrifice, then it would definitely have to be an error on her end, an error. But Ari coming in and getting the quick takedown. As you saw, Manu did not have much health to speak of, and it was only a matter of time from that point. So that's going to leave DEEPGROUND down to a two-piece of Anna and Carol. And as you can see, Anna and Carol trying to use these multiple perspectives on the opposition in GALACTICS to the best of their ability. But as a two-piece, they are very limited. And so this comes with its advantages and disadvantages. If they take focus onto Carol, it's not much Anna's going to be able to do if her off angle does not deem successful. But we're also seeing in the kill feed some other areas of confrontation, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe that's going to be between members of Elevate, ABG, and the opposition and Extreme Slayer. So we'll pull that up on the alt feed here. Ooh, okay, sorry about that. Not supposed to be right there, but there it was. Regardless, we got the alt cam going. And yeah, it does look like Azure just holding the rooftop, playing a little bit of surveillance, maybe firing at any passerbys, but no immediate threat there. And I'm going to hold off members of Galactics at the bridge tip here. And just to make sure we're not missing on anything else, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. Now, as you can see, this new zone has shifted. It's going to be a little bit more forgiving for the participants, as less surface area is going to be occupied by water. But actually, I think I'm pretty content with this stage of the zone. There's plenty of geographical advantages, high ground advantages, but even when that's not afforded, you have a bunch of compounds and buildings in the remaining zone, as well as this midlining riverway kind of dividing the position here. Looks like Galactics Ari here able to get an elimination. Oh, I withdraw that. It's actually a knock on a member of DEEPGROUND. It looks like Anna has taken a bit of a hit, and Ari coming in guns ablazing, a little too ahead of herself, a little too aggressive there, and it's going to be an instant knock. Bree, Jay, and Scar are going to have to carry on for the team as a three-piece, and here they go. The Scar is down. Bree does retaliate and is going to save the day, coming in clutch, and Scar will be revived. And just like that, members of Galactics are going to carry forward as a three-piece and with 3 eliminations to their name. Not a bad start. Didn't come without paying a price, but I'd still say it's a fair trade. 3 elims for 1 teammate could be worse. But as we reach closer and closer to this end game, those numbers are going to really start to matter all that much more. When space becomes fewer and farther between here, it's when it's going to really boil down. Those extra teammates can be the absolute difference maker between a chicken dinner and a, let's say, a 3rd or a 4th place finish. Catching eyes on Extreme Slayers, they're actually fairly close by HEARZ Esports. HEARZ looking like they actually have the high ground here and seemingly aware of their low ground holders in Extreme Slayers. As we can see, Steph here, or Steve, Werita, Scotty, and Victoria firing away. Mart Z taking quite a hit there, I believe from Victoria with that Scar L6X combo. Mart Z shot down to half health, and Victoria trying to seal the deal with a couple single taps, but not going to be able to hit the mark there. However, the outlier here for team HEARZ, we got Scotty able to finish what her teammate started and getting the takedown. Will it be worth a push? It does look like HEARZ is gonna go ahead and take advantage of this. They're not wasting a single moment. I'm not sure if this is the best push in this situation, as they still have 3 members up and a lot of little turrets, or not turrets, pardon me, trenches, I should say. Trenches to get cover in, but then again, the aggressive gameplay here is confident. Scotty coming in, getting a takedown with that UMP. However, revenge served cold fast on the platter. She is taken down, so that's going to leave it down to Victoria and Werita. Well, Victoria is down like a bad habit. Werita is the last hope for HEARZ, rushing forward with that UMP M4 double glacier combo here. And it looks like it's actually, oh, pardon me, it's Werita and Steve. I do apologize. It's still a 2-piece here for Team HEARZ, pushing forward onto Extreme Slayers. Extreme Slayers at this point, we'll get their perspective up on the alt feed. We can see Mart Z holding position just beside the plane here. It's down to Mart, Tokyo, and Dolly. Tokyo holding position using what bits of cover are afforded to her, the geographical trenches as well as that dead plane, providing little relief points of cover. Dolly scoping back in on members passing by through Galactics. Now, this is probably not the fight worth taking on when they have a closer, more immediate threat. All the while, we do see LUNOX going off in the distance, so I'll tell you what, just to be playing for the sake of catching everything. We're going to switch over to LUNOX on the alt cam as we see Bev firing across the streetway towards Vanilla of Gucci. Bev already reduced down to about 75% of her overall health. Gucci a little bit lower even than that. So it could be a bit of a standoff between these two at the North George Bridge meeting point. Now we're hearing shots off in the distance. I'm going to say probably coming from members of Extreme Slayers, but we have another altercation on the board down in the southern portion of zone here. And I think we're actually going to get both perspectives of this now. Switching down south where GTHESIS and the Witchers face off. We can see 222 here. Already they have a knock on see-through, but Dr. Miami trying to implement some heals, and she does in time, trying to shroud herself in a cloud of smoke using what bits of cover are afforded to her, but the numbers are very much against her here. And to add on to that, the high ground, geographical high ground advantage going to members of GTHESIS. The saving grace would have been Shoddy Bay, but gotta give credit to where GTHESIS comes from. They were ready and waiting for that push, and Shoddy was sent right on back down. So it's going to be all in the hands of Dr. Miami. And oof, the nade on both screens there. Sorry about that, but what a nade it was. And that'll be a trip back to the lobby with a first-class ticket. Switching back up way north to the northwestern portion, just outside of zone, where members of Extreme Ice square off against the opposition in Team 16. Team 16 is going to be gone. It was members of FK. However, they are down and out for that count. We're going to go tune back in to where HEARZ has their final showdown with members of Queens. And as you can see, Steve and Warita are very much outnumbered. Steve just swimming in a pool of Queens members. They're just going to swarm on her like mosquitoes in a North Carolina summer if she is not careful. And all the while, in the northeastern portion of the zone, we have another showdown happening. I'll go ahead and pull it up on the map feed. As you can see, we got Extreme Slayers in close proximity to Darkside Knights, and then the looming threat behind them in Galactics. Down south below that, we've got members of ABG. That's going to be Elevate ABG squaring off with their opponents in Phantom Reborn. Lots of altercations here happening on the board, and as you can see on the alt cam, Extreme Slayers down to Martz as he faces off against numerous members of Darkside Knight. And it looks like, yep, a full squad of Darkside Knight as well as a Galactic member in front. I'm afraid I might have to... Oh, that nade crashing onto stuff and sending that candle burning. We're going to have to go check out this other altercation, though, guys. There's just so much action happening elsewhere. Oh, and where Rita naded out on the main cam just before we switch out. Beautiful. Here we have it, guys. We got Extreme Ice sandwiching in members of LUNOX Esports here. LUNOX in a world of hurt at this point, down to, well, I guess still carrying forward as the two-piece that they started off, Bev and Tokyo. Tokyo taking a huge load of damage. They're going to desperately try to revive as her teammate Bev tries to provide some cover fire, but it's a third party from behind from none other than GTHESIS. And that is going to be the nature of an Erangel in-game for you. Here we have Jazz of Extreme Ice down to the final hope for the team as she is just outnumbered, outwomaned, and outgunned here by numerous GTHESIS members. And as you can see, one member of GTHESIS, J8, down, but it still leaves 64, 911, and their third remaining teammate still up, all with a high ground and numerous lines of sight on Jazz. And as you can see, Extreme Ice did not have a lot of options there. So we got an eye here on Tres Ranchos, down to 2 Ranchos, or I guess technically now it's actually down to Tres Ranchos. Michelle, Maka, and Cassie. It looks like Riza has been eliminated fairly earlier on. Michelle, desperately needing to heal, is able to do so in time, but we've got more action on the board as the Darkside Knights finally have their showdown, and it looks like they just may have finished off the remainder of Galactics, but out of the frying pan into the fire, so to speak. We'll tune in to the perspective of Phantom Reborn, where Novita and Brimon try to carry on as a two-piece, literally sandwiched in between Tres Ranchos and members of Darkside Knights. Novita firing outwards, 4x M4, not getting a single lick of connecting damage. Brimon actually taking a little bit, maybe 1 or 2 bullets worth of damage herself, but already preemptively boosted, prepared for this in-game fight. Let's get our eyes in the sky here just for a moment. It's a battle of utilities as hellfire rains around Novito and Brimon, and that is the takedown there and then. Brimon gonna have to try to solidify this stance here as numerous members of Tres Ranchos swarm upon her. Michelle getting the angle behind her. Brimon with no options here, outnumbered, outwomaned, outgunned, and out-angled. Beautifully played by Tres Ranchos as they acquire their 4th elim here. Let's have a look-see at the playing field. We can still see off on the western side, just outside the safe zone, GTHESIS facing off against members of Gucci. Let's get it up on the alt cam. Gucci down to Plush, and that is that. No more Plush. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we are down to 4 teams remaining, spread across 11 people. We've got Elevate, ABG. We got members of GTHESIS Esports on the northwest. We got Darkside Knights, and down in the southeastern quadrants, we still have the 2-piece remaining for Tres Ranchos. We got ourselves a 4v3, v2, v1. Oh, that's not correct. We have ourselves a 4v4, v2, v1. My apologies. To end round 1. It is going to be the right here now. Let's get it. All right. 222 desperately seeing a very limited window to get this revive. And will it be for naught? It doesn't look to fare out too well for them. And taking it even a step further, members of GTHESIS still have a low ground disadvantage and are actually surrounded on numerous angles. On the eastern front, they have Cassie and Maka of Tres Ranchos, and above them and northbound, as well as west, members of Darkside Knights and 911 taken right out of the equation, leaving 649 and 222 as the final hopes here. And just as I say it, the caster curse takes 222 back to the prone zone. 649 is the final hope here for GTHESIS. Trying to be a sneaky grass snake, but ultimately the Darkside Knights proving that chivalry is dead here for these Knights. And now down to a 2-piece of Tres Ranchos versus Darkside here. We'll get Cassie up on the... you know what? We'll get Beam of Darkside up on the alt feed. Oh, that is one member of Darkside taken down. We have ourselves a 2v1 here. Cassie just surrounded here, and Darkside playing this so confidently. They definitely deserve this victory. It was an absolute slaughterhouse, ladies and gentlemen, and any way you look at it, that has got to be game over. Sorry, game over, I said. But wow, what a very impressive performance by Darkside Knights as they take home that first place chicken dinner on the tip of their tongue, finish with, count them up, 13 elims. That is literally a 23-point boost up from one match and one match alone. And it's match 1, so talk about a way to set the tone for the day and really get the momentum going. Let's also give credit where credit is due. Tres Ranchos coming in and taking home this silver second place medal with 5 elims. 4 of those 5 between Cassie and Michelle alone. We got members of GTHESIS grabbing 3rd place, but doing so with a very, very healthy 13 elims. So when you take it into perspective versus Tres Ranchos, realistically, GTHESIS is going to come out a little bit ahead of Tres Ranchos for the round 1 point takeaway. We got Elevate ABG grabbing 4th place, but with a big fat onion for Elims, and that is definitely going to be problematic. But ladies and gentlemen, stick around. We are going to be back in just a few short moments. Now, we have got several rounds ahead of us here. Plenty of action to come. Now, we've seen our participants on the very first map ever of Erangel, but that's the map that our participants should be most acquainted with, most practiced on, most rehearsed with, built up the synergy the most on. What's going to happen when we change up the scenery a bit and have ourselves a little domination in the desert? I am, of course, speaking of the dry, arid map of Miramar as we return for round 205 of the PUBG Mobile Ivy League Phase 3 Day 1 tournament stage. I don't know how to say it, but either way, stick around. We'll be back at you in just a few short moments. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. It's round 2 of 5 of the PUBG Mobile Ivy League Phase 3 Day 1 Women's Professional Tournament. And we are kicking off round 2 with, you guessed it, the dry arid desert, the largest map that we have. Technically, that's not true, as Erangel is also an 8x8, but I say, given Erangel's surface area being so many bodies of water, that this is our largest map, meaning that the odds of two teams landing next to each other is just going to be a bit slimmer, but it's also the most open map that we have in the game. Now, that means, what does it mean for the participants? It could be a bit more sniper intensive. You need to be aware of not just your immediate surroundings, but your distant surroundings as well. So you're going to find it that whole safety, that area of comfort, just because your immediate vicinity is clear, never more so the case than on Miramar, is that not an indicator of safety here. I'm sure we will see. But look at this flight path, ladies and gentlemen. Not at all the ideal path. At least it wouldn't seem so on first impression. But knowing what we know here, and if you ever seen me commentate on a path like this, you'll know what's coming. But I say this actually is not as bad as it seems because of this route from Campo Militar down to the Minas de Valles thing, taking through 2 strings of cities, and this flight path is going to leave, I'd say, at least 40 to 50% of these compounds still within the drop range. So I don't see it being a particularly bad spot, especially considering the fact that almost none of the area is occupied by water. But let's go ahead and get into the thick of it, Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just tuning in, this is going to be round 2 of 5 of the PUBG Mobile Ivy League, Phase 3, Day 1. And already we're seeing here members of Extreme Ice dropping in fairly close proximity to LUNOX, and even further off to the eastern portion, we can see members of GALACTICS just dropping in right alongside the opposition. Oh, we're getting eyes on three, catching a glance on numerous teams here, shooting outwards at the sky at DARKSIDE Knights, as well as the dropping team in, pardon me, FK. That's going to be, I believe, SOFOKE. I think that actually might be incorrect, but I'll just call him FK for now. Switching over to, this probably is SOFOKE. Yes, I do withdraw my previous statement. This is SOFOKE, and at least I believe it is, in very close proximity to the opposition in DARKSIDE Knights. And if DARKSIDE has proven anything, it's not to be underestimated. I think they earned that little intimidation factor in round 1 with that performance that they put out. As you can see, Moni, Geo, Beam, and their fourth still pretty spread out. Actually, one of the members has apparently taken some bullet damage or fall damage, and is at about half health, clearly without the means of healing. Catching eyes on Beam, yeah, it was an opponent. It looks like well, there's still 0 elims on the board, so I'm a little bit confused there, but I certainly didn't see anything in the kill feed, so if I missed that, my apologies, but not so sure. We're going to just stay here on the main feed, and on the alt feed, I think we're going to go head down south, where members of Extreme Slayers are not too far off from Queen's Esports. I saw on YouTube we had quite a few people in the chat supporting Queen's, so we'll catch eyes on their perspective. Already, Nia, Abyss, Cashew, and Tay getting something, at least in terms of the very bare basics, in terms of loot and armor. Maybe not in the most ideal position, but as you can see, Nia already has herself the level 2 armor, M4 Tommy gun combo. I mean, it's a pretty lucky first stage loot for them, I would say. That's probably better than the average takeaway for only being on the ground maybe 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes. As you can see, DARKSIDE Knights getting a little bit closer to members of SOFOKE, but whether or not that's going to amount to anything, it's yet to be seen. And the reason I say that is, as my mentor would say, DKZA, who's actually co-commentating the PMGO qualifiers right now, alongside Jukes and Seven Worlds, he has this little saying here where, picture it like you're in a car on the interstate looking through a rear view mirror, and objects may appear closer than they actually are. And that is never more the case than on this giant map of Miramar. Just because it might look... Oh! Well, Vexana, that was a little render issue on our end, but Vexana trying to get a little closer to her team, but whether or not they are aware of the looming threat in SOFOKE, they got Robin and Reyna not too far off. As you can see, Reyna was just equipped with an Uzi, which is definitely, in my opinion, not the ideal SMG for a Miramar match, early stage or late. I just think that unless it's a dangerously close CQC, it might not be the most ideal. But even as we come turn around here, we're getting eyes on a couple members of GALACTICS. So they're not that far off from one another, but maybe not so close that it's going to amount to an early game altercation. But we are getting action here on the board, as you saw on the alt feed. Queen's Nia getting the takedown there and then on Tokyo of Extreme Slayers. That's going to leave Extreme Slayers down to a 2-piece. Dolly and Mart Z. Mart Z below half health, firing away with an ACE AUG combo and dropped to the ground like a bad habit. And now Dolly is all that remains, and Dolly is out. The Queens have spoken and are going to acquire their first 3 elims of the game without taking a single hit, or I guess a single loss. Didn't lose a single member of their team in the process, not even having to stress a knock. Queens off to a very good start here for round 2, but that does leave us with a lot of open space here in the remainder of this new zone. And interestingly enough, only the bottom half of this zone has been occupied so far. And it does make me wonder what is going to happen here on this elevated geography between teams like, let's say, the Witchers and their westbound threat in HEARZ Esports. And it looks like we might not even have to wait to find out here. Dr. Miami getting really close to the opposition. And I think I'm going to go ahead and pull that up here on the main feed. Yeah, well, whatever that was, Miami realizing this might not be as ideal of a situation as maybe he preemptively thought, she preemptively thought. We got Victoria of HEARZ Esports using the every lady for herself vehicle tactic as they pull a flank-bound rotation into zone, utilizing the western front here, with Werita and Victoria at the forefront of it. It looks to be almost even a 2-2 split if they don't stay unified. Going to switch on over to just the outskirts of the zone where Sethu of the Witchers driving right on past members of LUNOX Esports, and it doesn't look like she had any real issues in doing so, surprisingly enough. Yeah, I'm just going to have to make sure we're not missing anything, so tuning in on the alt cam just to get a closer look. As you can see, members of LUNOX here, not too far off, actually sandwiched in between members of GALACTICS and SOFOKE, and it seems like they may have even been firing outward, so let's just tune in for just a moment to make sure we're not missing anything. That render. Interesting. Alright, well, they have 4 ladies in a Jeep here. Now, this is, you know, it comes with a certain set of advantages and disadvantages, but we'll get into that moving forward. No time to waste as Queens Esports and SOFOKE prepare to face off here and now. It looks, yes, it does look like Abyss has taken the primary damage load there, being shot down to about 1/5 of her overall health. And as you can see, Abyss and Tay trying to make their great escape, but swallowing distance fire from LUNOX, as well as having the more closer threat of SOFOKE's Mia right behind him. And here comes the shots from Sophia. And oof, luckily for Tay and Abyss, no actual bodily damage taken there. However, Mia is able to get the takedown on Abyss right after I drop a nice little caster curse. Off in the distance, it also seems like DEEPGROUND facing off in the distance. So I'm curious what DEEPGROUND is up to. We'll tune into them on the alt cam. And as you can see, Tay and the member closest near her for SOFOKE both knocked as Cashew and Nia tried to provide a little bit of assistance here. Nia at the forefront of this revive, desperately driving towards her teammate Tay. And it looks like, yeah, they are going to be prioritizing revives, but one nade could really ruin this for them. Luckily, Cashew holds the alt angle, getting a nice extra line of sight on the opposition, and boy, does Nia come through clutching, getting the takedown on Mia. Nia gets Mia, and that's going to leave Nico Robin here as the final hope for SOFOKE, as she tries to stick a revive right here and now. On the alt cam, we got DEEPGROUND facing off in a 3-way fight here with members of DARKSIDE as well as LUNOX. And as you can see, Anna being naded down to the ground. That candle is burning bright, leaving it down to Carol and Manu. And here on the main cam, Nia is able to secure the revive on her fallen teammate Tay. And look at this, Nia and Tay, between the two of them, 7 elims already on the board. And yeah, it does look like LUNOX facing off in the distance. We're going to go ahead and catch eyes on that on the main screen as well. Get both sides of this altercation. We got the Darkside Knights, Geo, Beam, Moni, and their fourth year, but with 0 elims to their name. Manu is taken down off in the distance. That's DEEPGROUND. That's going to leave DEEPGROUND in the hands of Carol, and Carol alone as she tries to make a desperate escape there. And I actually think she will probably successfully get away there. But not so optimistic a tale for members of Darkside there. We got Beam a little bit late to join the party here. May end up being but Geo surviving by the hair on her chin there. Look at that, just a sliver of health, but is still very much alive here as Beam tries to provide some overwatch and cover fire so Geo can at least get this first aid off before resuming this confrontation. Vexana at about half health, clinging to that Uzi here. We're about to see if that CQC SMG is going to be helpful. Oh my goodness. Beam, even at the pro level, these mistakes can happen, and that nade was overcooked. And that ended up beaming Beam right on back to the lobby. You ever hear the saying, you're your own worst enemy? Well, in Beam's case, that may have been true. Geo, the final hope for Darkside Knights, trying to get some desperate and necessary loot here. And as she does, is just swallowing additional bullet damage from the high ground holder in DEEPGROUND. Let's just get a brief eye here. As you can see, Geo's going to try to enshroud her great escape here in a cloud of smoke, bringing me to a great point, ladies and gentlemen. When compound cover or geographical cover become few and far between, that's when it really comes down to saving up those utilities and making the best use of them. But you want to keep as many resources available for that in-game as possible. Carol has spoken, and boy, DEEPGROUND sending the opposition deep to the ground. Interestingly enough, these dad jokes are corny as all get out, and I can't stop it. All right. Further on the northeastern portion of the zone, we got members of Extreme Ice preparing to square off against the four-piece of GTHESIS. I'm not sure if this is going to amount to much just yet, but VKY is at the forefront of this altercation, utilizing a little hill cover, but unaware of 22L's little sneak rotation, a little flank to catch VKY off guard. But unfortunately for 222, that molly was very off the mark, and VKY looking like she is going to try to make a vehicle rotation away from this. Can't really blame her. We got Brian at the tail end of GTHESIS, but Extreme Ice still needs to find their new positioning inside this new zone. And as this match progresses, that real estate options are going to get fewer and farther between here. Less and less ground to choose from, so it's going to come down to getting a good placement and really securing a position, tying it down. And geography can make an absolute crucial difference maker between a first or a second place finish here, especially given this late stage elevation. What do I mean? I will tell you. We got areas here like GTHESIS are holding down, just this mountaintop, which is actually fairly beneficial, not just for the overwatch, which I guess is about a 270-degree overwatch over not just HEARZ, Elevation ABG, Extreme Ice, and RANCHOS, but it also means that they don't necessarily really need to account for much on the backside. There could absolutely be a late bound rotation behind them, but the odds at this stage, you know, they're slimmer, and I think slim enough to where a team like GTHESIS could maybe have one person on the overwatch for the back end, as the other three take advantage of this high ground and scout and relay the info back. But talk about interesting positions. You know, if you're a team like Extreme Ice now, that's not exactly the most ideal new positioning either. It does leave them the furthest distance to travel into this new zone, but also sandwiches them between two nearby threats. They're in between GTHESIS and RANCHOS, which could be very problematic down the road as they try to make their southbound rotation into this new zone. catching eyes on the last hope for DEEPGROUND, which is going to be Carol, firing away at the oncoming threat in the Witchers, and nice takedown on Sethu right there and then. But all that noise and commotion basically put Carol's location up like a honing beam, and none other than the looming threat in Phantom Reborn takes advantage as Rosen just eliminates her right out of the equation. Yep, I believe that was Rosen. Here on the forefront, though, Tres Ranchos pushing closer and closer to the opposition in extreme ice. As you can see, VKY taking quite a hit already. And this is an interesting altercation here because both of these teams have about the same geographical advantages. There's enough hills and divots here where they're not going to have to necessarily peek right in front of the opposition, but with the zone, you know, cutting their time short, it looks like Extreme Ice is going to use a wide flank vehicle rotation around the threat of Tres Ranchos and maybe just try to secure some good real estate in this new zone before taking on any new altercations. And you really can't blame them because, oh boy, sorry about that. We got Maka and Cassie here. They still have 0 elims to their name. Tres Ranchos getting closer and closer, whether they know it or not. We've got members of Extreme Ice coming in on the left side here, and VKY and Jazz could be in trouble as they're sandwiched in between 3 teams. Tres Ranchos, Extreme Ice, and Phantom Reborn. It's a trial by fire as Extreme Ice just tries to work their way through this obstacle course of bullets. 3 teams just putting the work on Extreme Ice and now bringing them down to their final hope, Jazz. And it looks like Jazz being the focal point here for the, well, I guess numerous teams. GTHESIS did the majority of that damage, but in the end, it was Victoria from HEARZ Esports who gets the elim. That is a tough pill to swallow, but kind of the nature of a Miramar match. Cassie aiming outwards at members of the Witchers with a 3x M4. I did see some pretty significant damage dealt there. It looks like Dr. Miami desperately needing this revive, and BBL does get her back up just before she is sent right back down to the prone zone. A little bit of irony there. We got Avocado, Plush, Hoku, and Vanilla of Gucci Esports. Avocado, 8x, Mini 14, aimed outwards at the remnants of the Witchers, trying to secure maybe a third-party elim steal. And I kind of like this 2-2 split that Gucci is doing here. Now, they're not in ideal positioning by any means, but I do think that a 2-2 split at the concluding portions of a Stage 5 Miramar match make a lot of sense, just given the open nature of Miramar. The odds of it having a lot of compound cover in the final zones are few and far between. So getting those additional lines of sight on your opponent, those multiple angles, and also the advantage of not having all your coins in one pocket, meaning that if one nade crashes on to the team, it's not going to take out all 4 members. Well, Queens is about to have at it now with Galactics. Meanwhile, towards the center of zone, we got Phantom Reborn about to square off with the opposition Gucci. So we'll pull that up on the alt. And Mia is downed right there. And then it's all down to Cashew for the Queens Esports. Cashew coming in, Tommy gun blazing, quickly switching on the M4, but swallowing damage that she is not able to put out. And unfortunately, that Cashew has been cracked. The nut has been cracked, and now they are back to lobby. Here on the main cam, though, we've got the standoff between Tres Ranchos and zone holders and Phantom Reborn continuing forth. Now, if you are Phantom Reborn, you could be stuck in between a rock and a hard place, all too literally, as they've got just beneath them members of the Witchers, but off behind them now, as you're seeing unfold before our eyes, Gucci Esports coming in from the backside, catching Phantom Reborn very unawares. And to add insult to injury, the Witchers holding down the north end. This is a tough position for Phantom Reborn. They are the deli meat in this peanut butter and trouble sandwich as Avocado tries to smoke her way towards the opposition in an aggressive push, but it's actually Tres Ranchos' Riza that gets the takedown on Brimon, leaving it down to Paula and Novita for Phantom Reborn. Paula, I will pull her up on the alt cam. Oops, sorry about that. Paula able to get the revive on Brimon right then and there. Novita trying to provide a little bit of overwatch and cover fire, but being taken down to half health. And just like that, the Tres Ranchos put the work in on the Witchers and send them back to lobby as well. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're down to 5 teams here as we reach stage 6. We got a full 4-piece in Gucci, but as I say that, Vanilla is not. It's 3 of Galactics coming in with a double takedown, utilizing that high ground. What a final performance there. She's got Jay remaining. Jay might be able to alleviate some of this and maybe even secure those finishes. She's got 3 knocks on Gucci, and this is well worth an aggressive push. Cooking up some utilities. Will she be able to get a nade crash? It's down 1 member of Gucci still remains here, and it's gonna be Hoku. Will it crash? Jay pushing up aggressively. Hoku firing away, and Jay clutches it. And just like that, what could have been a disastrous late game for Galactics ends up being a clutch as they have now secured at the worst place a 4th place finish and done so with 7 elims already to their name. And their heaviest hitter is the one still remaining on the playing field. That is right. We've got Jay here of Galactics, and look at that, it's actually HEARZ Esports' Victoria that drops a nade right on Tres Ranchos. Rizzo having to hold off to provide this overwatch, getting the takedown on Huerita, and here we have it. Rizzo with yet another takedown, and Cassie of Tres Ranchos is down as well. This is going to put a world of hurt onto Tres Ranchos. It's down to Rizza alone here, desperately trying to retreat to a geographical position of cover and maybe even a lot for a way to get Macaw up. But with that zone closing in, time is of the essence. There will be no revives here, and nades are being thrown outwards. The high ground holder in Galactics is Jay coming in, but ultimately HEARZ doesn't see Jay. Came out for a finish, and Jay gets not only her knock, but the knock on the person who got the knock. Talk about prime positioning. As a solo, Galactics Jay in peak form, where Rita is down. I think we have a 1v1 on our hands, ladies and gentlemen. It's Steve versus Jay. Galactics versus HEARZ. Boy, Jay putting the onslaught of bullets outwards with that M249 150 round clip. Getting Steve down to just above half health, but if Jay hesitates at all, if Warita is able to secure a revive on her fallen teammate, it would be a disastrous error on Jay's end. And it doesn't look to be the case. No such opportunity is afforded to Steve. Jay secures the elim, and now Steve pushing outwards a little bit hectically, swallowing a healthy portion of bullets there. Shot down to about 1/3 of her overall health. And now Jay trying to finish the job, and does so with the vehicle explosion. Boom goes the dynamite, all too literally in any way you look at it, ladies and gentlemen. What a impressive performance there. It's gotta go to none other than Galactics Esports here, coming in with a extremely healthy 10 elim finish and first place. So that's 10 placement points, add on to the 10 elim points, 20-point gain for round 2 alone. Very impressive. And let's not discredit Team HEARZ coming in second with 7 elims to their name. Not a bad performance at all. I think anyone can say 15-point gain in 1 round alone is nothing to wag your finger at. Well, ironically enough, the Tres Ranchos coming in tres with 8 elims. Phantom Reborn coming in 4th with 2, one from Novita and one from Rosin. We got Gucci in 5th with 2 elims, 1 to Plush, 1 to Avocado. 6th place is going to belong to the heavy hitters in the Witchers, but heavy hitters may not be the best description as they only have 1 elim to speak of as a 3-piece. They did come in with weaker numbers from the get-go at an immediate disadvantage, so you can't judge that low kill count too harshly here, at least not at this stage. We got members of GTS. That's going to be GTHESIS or GTHESIS in 7th with 1 elim to 911M. The Queens taking their spot on the throne. Unfortunately, the throne is down in 8th place, but ain't nothing wrong with 8 elims to add on to it. They meet the bare bracket for placement, but then have a healthy 8 elims to add into the equation. Elevation ABG, another tough go here. This time, 0 elims to their name and a 9th place finish. I don't believe that's going to be any placement points at all. So a 0-point gain for them. And same can be said for Extreme Ice. 10th place with 0 elims. And yet another 3-piece enters the round for round 2. It's DEEPGROUND putting up a much more impressive performance. With only 2 between Carol and Manu, they put up 5 elims right there on their own. We got the Darkside Knights, 12th place with 2 elims, both of which go to Geo. LUNOX in 13th with 5 between Vexana and Victoria. SOFOKE in 14th with 1 to Mia. And lastly, the Extreme Slayers doing no slaying whatsoever in 15th place and 0 elims. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is 2 down, and we still have a whole nother map to get into. Now, we've seen our participants on the very first map of Erangel before we migrated over to that dry, open, arid desert destruction in the desert, so to speak, in Miramar. But now it's time for a little rumble in the jungle as we close things in on that lush condensed forest for round 3. I am, of course, speaking about Sanhok as we return for round 3 of 5 of the PUBG Mobile Ivy League Phase 3 Day 1 in just a few short moments. Stick around. We'll be back soon. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to round 3 of 5 of the PUBG Mobile Ivy League Phase 3 Day 1. And we are kicking off round 3, as you guessed it, that good old Rumble in the Jungle. That's right, this is going to be the last change in geography before we start circling back and getting our do-overs on Miramar and Erangel. Now, what do we need to say about a map like Sanhok? Well, essentially the exact opposite of our last match, which was Miramar, our largest map. This one's going to be our smallest. Now, technically there are smaller maps in PUBG Mobile, obviously Livik and Karakin and Noosa, but we don't really mess with those in the esports scene as much. So this is going to be the smallest map that we have for the day, meaning that the odds of two teams landing next to each other is just automatically going to be a bit higher. But as you know to be the case, this is also the most condensed map that we have in the game. Now, what do I mean when I say condensed? I mean most lush in vegetation. There's more natural cover to take, more grass to hide inside, and trees and boulders to hide behind, so you got to be alert for that higher than average number of snakes than usual. And, you know, the absolute obvious is that there is more natural cover to take, and so that means that you need to be aware for the imminent threat of snakes in the grass. Even if your close vicinity looks to be safe, that does not mean it is. The enemies can be absolutely anywhere because there's just so many ample positions to take cover, even just with the high grass alone. All right, I'm going to tune in to, I guess, yeah, it looks like we're already getting some action, and it's going to be on the western front here. So we're going to go tune in to where Galactics is. Oh, I thought it was going to be Galactics. I thought it was Galactics. Was it not? It was. It was Ari of Galactics being taken out by the threat in is that DSK? Yes, it was Phantom Reborn. My apologies. Phantom Reborn getting an early elim already on the board for them and taking the Galactics down to a 3-piece. Not an easy pill to swallow at the beginning of the match. Getting eyes on Extreme Slayers. Looks like Martz is a bit late to the party. SOFOKE getting some action in here. Yes, they are. Here on the western, or pardon me, the eastern front at Camp Bravo, they are putting a hurtin' on the Darkside Knights just to the south of them. Looks like Glitzy able to secure the first elim for the team, and they have a nice positioning here with plenty of compound cover. Only problem is they are outside of zone with a decent ways to travel, and currently playing the deli meat in a peanut butter and trouble sandwich where the Extreme Slayers and the Darkside Knights are the bread for sure. But elsewhere, I guess we could say we also have another potential cluster forming and an opportunity for Tres Ranchos to have one heck of a gatekeep opportunity on not just Elevate, but Extreme Slayers, SOFOKE, and DSK. But if they were to engage in a gatekeep position and hold this zone edge, it could spell trouble in the shape and form of Queen's Esports. Only time will tell, but one thing is for sure, with this much of the zone being occupied by water, including these little dividing riverways, that is a lot of surface area taken away from our participants. And I think it's a good thing for us to have that for the participants in a Sanhok early stage match, just because there's just so many buildings and compounds. You want to take away some of their options. give us a higher chance for earlier mid-game confrontation. And it looks like we might still be due for one here. But I don't want to miss anything. So on the alt cam, I'm going to go pull up members of Phantom Reborn just to see if they end up... Oh, I take that back. We're going to tune into HEARZ. And we'll do that on the main cam. HEARZ, just to the north of LUNOX Esports. And yep, right there. And then Steve going in, getting a takedown, which could spell the second elim for HEARZ Esports if they are able to close in on LUNOX. Actually, I think I may have spoken a little too soon. I think that was the first elim for HEARZ, and it was taking out a member of LUNOX. Yep, Bev has been sent back to lobby, bringing LUNOX down to a three-piece of Victoria, Vexana, and Tokyo. Victoria with a QBZ AK-47 in hand, finding herself pretty well equipped, honestly. I was honestly going to say maybe not ideally equipped for anything long mid-range to long range, but realistically a 6x scope on a QBZ is not as bad as it was when it was first introduced to the game. And I honestly think that if you're able to 6x a SCAR, then a QBZ shouldn't really be too much more difficult. Honestly, I would consider it easier. So we can't rule that out. Tres Ranchos getting a nice little cluster here. Yep, it's going to be Tokyo of Elevate ABG getting the finish on RZA right then and there. That's going to bring Tres Ranchos down to tres personas remaining. It's going to be Maka, Cassie, and Michelle as RZA is sent back to lobby. And still 0 elims on the board for the Ranchos. But with Michelle maybe having an off angle, could get a surprise factor on Elevate ABG. I'm not sure if this is a fight worth taking on at this point without knowing the locations and positions of the remainder of Elevate, but that's just our 2020 spectators' vision here. We're not the professional players like they are. Elsewhere on the map, actually a lot of clusters forming here. I think this is still the most imminent threat, but on the alt cam, just to make sure we're not missing anything, we're going to have Galactics and Extreme Ice pulled up just to make sure we don't miss anything. Oh, and that's actually Queen's Esports going off in the distance. Yeah, we got a love triangle forming outside of the zone here. It's actually in the northeastern portion outside the dead zone between members of Queen's, Elevate ABG, and Tres Ranchos. Tell you what, we'll pull up Tres Ranchos on the alt feed. And we can see Cassie firing away at Elevate. Looks like Elevate is in a world of hurt here. Matter of fact, we're going to tune in just to see what the situation is. It's down to Tokyo alone here, trying to get this revive on her fallen teammate, Xena. All the while, Nia of Queen's Esports creeping on closer, putting some shots outwards as Cassie and her now revived teammate try to make their great escape in that two-seater. But Michelle still lingers back there. Could be bad news for Michelle. It's actually going to be bad news for Cassie of the Ranchos. Maka is down, and Michelle, having to hang back, ended up being her saving grace in this situation. And look at this. Michelle has a real opportunity to catch ABG unawares, and this might be it. Nade cooked up, but just those smokes ended up saving Xena and Tokyo big time. But Xena making a huge error in judgment, regardless of even if a nade didn't crash, she just ran to where Michelle thought she was. And I think, you know, that's, again, down to our spectator vision being 2020. We have information that our participants don't. Tokyo versus Michelle. Tres Ranchos and Elevate ABG down to a 1v1 in the dead zone unless Michelle allows this revive on Xena, which I doubt. And Michelle coming through with the clutch, and the Tres Ranchos carry on. Just one Rancho left, but that's all they need sometimes. Gonna switch over to Extreme Ice, facing off against Galactics off in the distance. At this point, Galactics is down to a 2-piece, and oh boy, let's scratch that. Extreme Ice down to Brian alone against Bree and Jay. It's a 1v2, and Bree coming over the wall. Brian had a real opportunity there, but not a single bullet landed. Even with the UMP, he is down, she's down just below half health, above half health, and down for the count as Bree comes through with a clutch for Galactics. All right, we're hearing more shots off in the distance. Let's catch an eye in the sky here. It looks like maybe Darkside Knights is the team to keep an eye on here. We'll see, just to be sure. They've got the Witchers just down in the Pine region, not far off, and the high ground holders in SOFOKE on the hilltop, not far off either. But that couldn't be where the shots came from. I doubt it. So, where is our next battle going to come from? I think we have a couple different options. I think I'm going to switch on the alt cam over to members of LUNOX Esports. They are in uncomfortably close proximity. Actually, I guess it's one member in uncomfortably close proximity. Vexana, nearby members of GTHESIS. And it looks like Vexana might have had some scouting abilities there. Gonna get away from that. Gonna see her team here, because on the other side of this bridge is more trouble in the shape and form of Extreme Slayers. Boy, Geo and her teammate got out of the frying pan just in time. And I think that may have even been coincidental. So where's our next bit of blood gonna come from in this rumble in the jungle? I'm thinking it could be between the Witchers and Extreme Slayers on the southeastern portion. Could be a third party from SOFOKE. It's actually going to be right here, what we're watching now, between the Darkside Knights and members of GTHESIS. I was about to say, why has no shots been fired? It's because Darkside and GTHESIS are both vehicle rotating here. And it looks like GTHESIS had a bit of knowledge about what Darkside was up to, and getting a takedown on one of the, I believe, two or three remaining members. One of the two remaining members, now two left, pardon me. One of the three remaining members now down to two. That would make more sense. And look at this, Martz with a very risky vehicle rotation, driving right next to members of GTHESIS as well, and it might spell trouble for her teammate Dolly, YO24, and Tokyo. Tokyo trying to utilize what bits of cover are afforded to her, all the while 911 coming in, given a real reason to call it a state of emergency here. Now Tokyo sandwiched in between a rock and a hard place, and the rock and hard place are both in the shape and form of GTHESIS. 222 and 911 both cooking up these nades, just crashing down, turning her into a burning birthday candle here. Tokyo down to half health, desperately needs of some heals, gonna try to get inside the vehicle and give a little bit of utility cover. All the while, SOFOKE might have just given them her saving grace, driving right by and taking some of the distraction here. 222 firing outwards does do some massive damage to Reyna, but will it be enough? She swallows a lot of damage in return and does manage to get that first aid off in time. Looks like she seems to be putting her guard down to Extreme Slayers, and look at this. Glitzy and Robin coming through with the off angle, a 2-2 split from SOFOKE. Well played. Now, Reyna and them still need to worry about the very, very real looming threats, and case in point, Reyna is down. From the threats behind him in the shape and form of, well, I was going to say, there's actually numerous threats here. We got LUNOX as well as GTHESIS, and this ended up being a GTHESIS takedown. And now it's going to, oh, wow. It's actually GTHESIS firing across the way at Darkside Knights. And if I'm not mistaken, yep, Darkside Knights is now going to be down to Moni alone, but there's no time to waste. We're going to pull it up on the alt cam as Extreme Slayers faces off against numerous teams right now against a member of GTHESIS, 911 being taken down, and SOFOKE, Nico Robin coming in for an off-angle third party onto Dolly. Dolly swallowing a heap of damage, being brought down to just below half health before securing a first aid heal up, and now going to try to hold this geographical edge, this riverbank way, providing what bits of geographical cover she can to try to sneak her way on by the very, very real threat of a four-piece of SOFOKE. Looks like Witcher's having at it in the distance. Tell you what, we'll pull that up. Let's pull that up on the alt cam as we got GTHESIS 649 in a nade battle here with the high ground holders in LUNOX, but look at this, a third party. Oh, it's not a third party. 649's nade crashed perfectly. All right, we are reaching the in-game showdown for our Sanhok round 3. It's about to be all-out bloodbath warfare from this point on. We got the Witchers trying to work their way in. On the alt feed, Moni of Darkside Knights trying to get healed up before the very likely confrontation ahead of her between herself and HEARZ Esports. Meanwhile, Shoddy Bay trying to provide some overwatch and cover fire as her teammate squares off against members of Gucci. We see Sithu trying to secure a revive on BBL, her fallen teammate. Meanwhile, Avocado trying to get a little bit boosted, but that little peek out onto Dr. Miami was all it takes to be sent back to lobby. Here we see Moni of Darkside Knights, the final hope for her team, trying to work her way into this new zone, and boy oh boy, outnumbered even to the low ground holders. HEARZ Esports takes her right out of the equation. All right, we're down to 7 teams spread across 17 people. And look at this new zone, favoring 2 teams only. Tres Ranchos' last hope, Michelle, and Galactics, 2 of our top performing teams here. And look at Michelle, even as a solo, putting out an onslaught, a hailstorm of bullets outwards towards Phantom Reborn. Now, Phantom, another in-game approaching team. This is where Phantom Reborn clearly seems to thrive. Even though they only have 2 elims to their name, they are still a full 4-piece team, and you cannot put enough emphasis on having a full 4-piece, having those numbers in your favor come in-game. And you know what? Down south, it looks like Witcher's having at it with members of Galactics. Galactics outnumbered, outwomaned, and outgunned. It's Bree and Jay up against a 3-piece. And look at Dr. Miami sent right on back down to the lobby. Jay desperately in need of some medicine here, which means Bree is going to be in charge of the overwatch and cover fire, but she is in a CQC altercation with none other than Shoddy Bay of the Witchers, putting out a preliminary nade to cover on the bottom side of the bridge before pushing the top. It was a great strategy, but it does not pay off in this case. That's going to leave Galactics down to Jay and Jay alone, and the Witchers just out here hunting numerous teams, engaging with not just Galactics, but members of HEARZ Esports as well. BBL engaging with HEARZ, while her teammate Shoddy has at it with the remainder of Galactics. Look at this, 8 elims, and half of the elims are between the 2 remaining members of the Witchers, BBL and Shoddy. All right, Phantom Reborn, that's Novita getting a takedown, and that would be their 3rd elimination. They're in for a slow play, but these are absolute in-game specialists. Phantom Reborn like to prioritize getting those placement points before going out on the more aggressive strategies here. And look at Shoddy Bay and BBL surrounding the remainder of Galactics on both sides, and that BOA strat in full effect, but the third party from Phantom Reborn all too real. And ladies and gentlemen, we're down to 4 teams spread across 7 people as we reach the end game for round 3. It's go time. Michelle could be in for a world of trouble. It's a 1v2, or I guess a 2v2v1v1 here to end round 3. Michelle on the alt cam cooking up a nade, but it's a third party from, oh, it's not a third party. It's actually Novita getting that off angle and catching Michelle unawares. So now it's down to 3 teams, a 2v2v1. Can Victoria of Here's Esports hang on for just a little bit longer? Every slot up at this point is extra points. All Victoria would need to do is just try to lay low and let these 2 teams duke it out. But unfortunately, oh, she's actually got position in this new zone as well. And a potential wall blocking her from the bullet fire that could come from the Witchers. However, the problem is that does not really account for the other threat in front of her in Phantom Reborn. Victoria very much needing to lay low and under the radar here. And Bremon coming up at the forefront of this push here. Bremon taking a heap of damage, and the mollies crash on around her as well. Down to half health, but able to get this first aid off. It looks to be the case. And what a retaliatory utility from Novita, putting a real hurting onto Shoddy. And look, Victoria, you can't forget about the looming third-party threat from the final hope of Here's Victoria Esports, or Here's Esports Victoria, cooking up a nade of her own. And boy, 2 nades from 2 teams crashing on Bremon at the same time, but not enough to take her out. And Novita had eyes on Victoria, but it's BBL the Witchers getting the finish there and then. And now a 2v2. Oh my goodness, Bremon is down. It's down to Novita, a 1v2. She is brought down to 3/4 of her overall health, trying to make a final stand with AK-47. She gets BBL down. Now it's just 1v1. Shoddy and her both at literally less than a third of their health. Novita is out of there. What a clutch ending. Oh my goodness. This in-game action is unparalleled. And any way you look at it, ladies and gentlemen, that has got to be a game over. But what a finish it was. And the Witchers, toss a coin to your Witcher, right? Real quick, because a 12 elim first place finish. That is a 22-point game for the Witchers. Talk about a change in the winds, a turning in the tides. That is a chicken dinner on the tip of their tongue finish, and maybe just what they need to advance on to, or at least enter into day 2 with a much higher level of confidence, and definitely alleviate some of that gap between themselves and their higher holding placers. We got Phantom Reborn taking 2nd place, but hey, ain't nothing wrong with that 8 placement points when you add 4 elims on top of it. 12-point takeaway for Phantom Reborn for round 2. Here's Esports Victoria taking them all the way up to that 3rd place positioning, and the elims were a pretty consistent contribution to from all team members here, as they take that bronze medal 3rd place, but do so with a very healthy 7 elims to add on to that. Today's RANCHOS, another strong finish, getting a 4th place this time with 5 elims, and 80% of those elims go to Michelle alone. GALACTICS finishing strong, 5th place with 7 elims. 5 of those 7 go to Bree alone. 6th place is going to go to GTS. That's the GTHESIS girls with 7 elims, and get this, 6 of those 7 are between 649 and 911 alone. SOFOKE in 7th with 3. DARKSIDE Knights, a tough finish in 8th place, but able to get a little bit of placement points and 1 elim to add into the equation. Not going to be much help there though. Gucci in 9th, barely missing that placement point bracket, and unfortunately 0 elims to add into it. The Queen's having a tougher go this time around. 10th place with only 1 elim going to Tay. LUNOX in 11th with 0. 12th going to the XTREME Slayers. Extreme Ice on pretty fragile ice right now. 13th place with only 1 elim. And lastly, Elevate has been de-elevated down to 14th, and 3 elims between Tokyo and Xena. But while that may be all the different maps in terms of geography that we get into, now is where it really gets interesting, because it's time to start circling back. Ladies and gentlemen, we still have 2 more rounds of action, mayhem, and strategy. We've seen all the geography. Now it's the do-overs. Time to correct the errors from round 2. Whatever didn't work out in your first Miramar match, well, here's where you can account for that and make up for it. Time to kick on things off with round 4 in just a few short moments. We'll be back with a little destruction in the desert as we approach round 4 of 5 of the PUBG Mobile Ivy League Phase 3 Day 1 in just a few short moments. Stick around. We'll be back soon. Alrighty, sorry about that. Game over. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to round 4 of 5, and you already know what we're into. Back for a little more destruction in the desert as we kick off for round 4 in Miramar. Now, everything we need to say about Miramar, we got out of the way in round 2, so let's just focus on the flight path and where teams are actually going. So, as you can see, it is a very centralized flight path. You can't really ask for much more ideal division of the field, the playing field here. It's going to leave nothing but a drop options and potential for our participants. Just a ton of cities and compounds to choose from. So that means something for us, the viewer, as well. It could be a bit of a slower start, especially with 14 teams at entering this match. It definitely could be a bit of a slower first half, maybe even first 3/4 of the match. That possibility is very much out there. But anyone who has watched even one day of my commentary knows what I'm going to say. I say it every time because it is always true. More passive early game has to mean a more action-packed and climactic mid or end game. So if we are left with a little time, little bits of stagnant time, I won't be too discouraged because we will still get that hefty in-game action. All right, well, we're catching eyes on Extreme Ice, and as you can see, they're not entirely far off from Phantom Reborn, but Phantom Reborn going to keep on moving around. But for the Darkside Knights and Queens Esports, however, a little different tale could be told here. They are in very close proximity, so we're going to get them up on both cams. On the alt cam, we have Nia of Queens Esports, and on the main, we have, well, I'm not going to say that name. We'll say Beam of Darkside Knights. I'm going to go ahead and make this alt cam just a tiny bit smaller here for us, just to not take up so much space. And yeah, Beam is not playing anything to chance here. Very cautious and very aware of the looming threat in Queens Esports. Nia rotating around with an S18 Tommy gun combo. This could spell trouble. Beam putting out a preemptive fire there with the Uzi, not getting a lick of connecting damage, but Abyss is taken down in the distance, which is going to bring it down to a 3-piece of Tay, Cashew, and Nia. We're going to switch up perspectives here. Play it fair for everyone. Oh, well, Abyss is sent to the Abyss by Moni. And the remainder of Queens Esports holding ground, but boy, Tay way off in the distance. Nia able to secure a takedown with the S18. Sorry about that, S18 shotgun, and then quickly switching over to her Tommy gun, trying to get some meds off, but the looming threat of DSK is so imminent that she's a little reluctant to actually get the heals. She's throwing some nades in to try to secure a finish, but no, it's almost half committed is what I would say. Nia, with the right confidence and the right, I would say, no moments wasted. An immediate utility being thrown right after that knock, but before the revive was secured, could have been the finishing move, essentially, for Queens Esports on to DSK, but too little too late, and that's always easier to say with our spectator 2020 hindsight. Switching over to Cashew for just a brief moment. Beam still on the alt cam. We'll switch over to Geo, holding the off angle with an S12 UMP combo. Moni, the shooter on the roof. Well, I mean, she doesn't have a lot of ammo for it, but she does have 45 of her 50 remaining 5.56 bullets loaded up in that M249, so that is not something to take lightly this early on in game, especially considering that she is readily equipped with level 2 armor and some nades as well. And a quick line of sight. This is going to be real interesting to see how this plays out. We're going to switch over to Beam on the alt cam here, and here on the main cam, I'm going to hold position with Cashew just to get an idea. 3 members of DSK, 4 members of DSK actually close in the mix. Nia holding right just several feet away at most from Moni of DARKSIDE. And oof, beam gets beamed by Cashew. And here we have it. Cashew and Nia. Nia gonna try to catch him off angle, does get the takedown, a double takedown by Nia with the Tommy gun. Beautifully done. And this is gonna put a world of hurt on the DSK down to a 2-piece. Moni and her remaining teammate here. And oh my goodness, the Queen's just putting out an onslaught. Oh, Nia being sent right on back to lobby. And look at this. It's going to be DSK moving forward with the victory of that altercation. Nicely done. I almost thought it was going to be a victory for Queens, but ultimately for not. So, is there anything else we should be tuning into at the moment? Currently, little bit of a spread. I think the closest thing to an altercation would have to be between Galactics and SOFOKE off on the southeastern front here. We got Glitzy of SOFOKE closest to, I guess, Jay and another one of Jay's teammates, Jay and Ari. But there is the southbound outlying threat in Scar that may be unknown to SOFOKE. It doesn't look like it's going to amount to anything regardless, given the rotation that Galactics is pushing towards that westbound rotation around SOFOKE. We are getting a definite cluster here inside the zone, though, between members of Extreme Ice, the Witchers, LUNOX, and DSK. And for DSK, that could be out of the frying pan into the fire. They can still probably handle that altercation at this stage. Even, you know, with one member down, a 3-piece of DSK clearly is a confident team nonetheless, as all 4 elims are still divided between the 2 of the 3 remaining DSK members. Looks like Tres Ranchos and Team HEARZ might be preparing for an altercation. I don't think Michelle is aware of it, though, yet. Just to get a better idea of how far away they are, I might check a bird's eye view. And I think what we'll do instead is check in on LUNOX, because they are pretty darn close to DSK as well. And on the alt cam, we'll catch the Witchers and Extreme Ice if that ends up being something. We got Shoddy of the Witchers on the off cam or the alt cam getting an overwatch, a nice overwatch over basically the entirety of Hacienda. However, it could be problematic for her given how spread Extreme Ice is. I don't see it being a fight or an altercation that's really beneficial for either team to take on, because with Shoddy Bay having that geographical high ground cover and Extreme Ice having that much compound cover, even at a low ground disadvantage, I don't see the likelihood of a thirst being very imminent. I do see a potential for a knock, but it doesn't matter who knocks who. If they knock Shoddy, from her positioning, as soon as she's knocked, she's basically out of the line of bullet fire behind that hill. And flip the coin, same can be said for Extreme Ice. As soon as, you know, Shoddy knocks one of them through a window, once they're on the ground, that's more than likely going to be out of the line of sight from that window fire. Well, Bev of LUNOX catching wind of Elevate ABG driving right by and not even trying to engage with it. And Elevate definitely needs to get some elims on the board here. Now, we just saw on the kill feed Jay of Galactics getting the first elim for her team, and they still have members of SOFOKE beneath them. Meanwhile, LUNOX having at it with more action against the northbound threat in Elevate ABG, but they are also sandwiched between Elevate and Darkside Knight, so they're going to have to play this fairly carefully. Remember what I said in round 2 of Miramar, that you need to be aware of not just your immediate but your distant surroundings as well, just due to the open geographical nature of Miramar. So it's going to be a bit of a toss-up. If Bev and the remainder of LUNOX do not account for their backside, it's a a very likely possibility of a third-party threat from DSK. And we're seeing Mia of SOFOKE Esports driving on by Bev with a M16 Uzi. I definitely did not feel that the Uzi was the ideal SMG for a Miramar match, but these are professional players, and they do this quite a lot more effectively than I do. So I would trust their judgment much before I would trust mine. If they say the Uzi is the move for them, I believe it. But LUNOX gonna pull a vehicle rotation regardless, and so we're left with a little bit of downtime here. But look at this cluster. It's almost the entirety of the playing field all squished in to like maybe 20% of the available zone. And LUNOX is out of the frying pan, potentially right into the fire, and the same frying pan that they escaped is the fire they're getting into. It looks like Elevate ABG is the closest threat. Speaking of Elevate, I did see Faith putting out some bullets to the high ground holders in Extreme Ice, but Elevate, you know, has been fairly underwhelming in terms of eliminations thus far, so I would definitely like to see them get a bit more aggressive. We got an altercation brewing between Phantom Reborn and somebody. It looks like Novita was able to secure a knock, but on who, I wasn't able to tell. Let's catch a glance, but it looks to have been on a member of Tres Ranchos. Yeah, Isa has been taken down, leaving it up to Michelle, Cassie, and Maka until the revive is put in place. Michelle trying to keep a little bit of scouting info on the threat behind them, which is, of course, members of HEARZ Esports. Yeah, the shots are definitely being put out. We're not a lot of connecting damage, if any. Little bit of downtime as we reach the concluding portion, almost the concluding portions of stage 2. Still plenty of action ahead of us, but look at this. I'm going to put it up on the alt cam. Shoddy Bay of, oops, sorry about that. Shoddy Bay of the Witchers with an overwatch here on members of Galactics, putting the bullets outward and any connecting damage. I do believe Shoddy Bay just secured a knock, and boy, retaliation served cold, fast, and on a platter as the Galactics Scar takes her right back down as well. All right. Well, that's not ideal for poor Shoddy. But what else is happening on the playing field? Decent spread otherwise, as to be expected, at least not to be surprising in a large map. And as I said earlier, large maps are 4 out of the 5 that we're doing. But as you can see, we still have almost 50 players up. As this zone shrinks, the real estate options and geographical placement positions are going to become fewer and farther between. It's going to become a competition for prime real estate, and our participants, whether they're comfortable or not, are going to be forced into the gunfire as this match progresses. Michelle, as we saw from last match, Tres Ranchos, certainly not afraid of an altercation by any means, but thus far in round 4 with 0 elims on the board. All right, well, not a lot happening on the playing field, so we're going to switch over to LUNOX just in case. Yeah, it looks like Elevate driving right on by. Actually, Elevate was in hot pursuit of members of Team 12 here. Team 12, of course, being the Extreme Players, getting the takedown on Tokyo, and now it's Vexana and Bev of LUNOX facing off against ABG Elevate. And talk about patience by Vexana. That was easy first, but look at how it pays off. Switching to the Uzi. And Vexana downed right before our eyes, as well as Tokyo, leaving it down to a 2-piece of Bev and Victoria. Bev desperately trying to secure a revive, while Victoria provides some overwatch and cover fire, but all for naught. Victoria is down and out for the count as well. Sent back to lobby by the high ground holders in Extreme Slayers. Goodness gracious. Talk about good positioning. Extreme Slayers in a nice 2-1 split, or maybe even a 2-2 split. Let me have a look at that. Yeah, it's a 2-1 split as they are down to just a 3-piece. Even securing this revive, they have multiple lines of sight on the low ground holders in LUNOX, so it's not for nothing here. They could still have a nice surprise factor on Bev and Tokyo if they are, as of yet, unaware of Marty Z's location. Elsewhere, not a lot happening. Little bit of a standstill. But the zone has only 1 minute left into stage 3 before shrinking again. So I think it's down to just a matter of moments before things get a bit spicier. I'll tell you what, actually, we're going to go check in on YO24 of Extreme Slayers, being a sneaky desert sidewinder here, getting a overwatch over members of LUNOX, and I don't think LUNOX knows of her position, but talk about a vulnerable position that is. Stuck in between a rock and a hard place, literally sandwiched in between Gucci and LUNOX, YO24 could be in a world of trouble. And think about it this way, you know, that angle and advantage that Marty Z had was only really advantageous in terms of LUNOX. It does not account for a third-party approach from Gucci Esports. So that really means if YO24 puts any shots outwards down onto LUNOX, it's almost certainly going to give up her positioning to the threat behind her, the high ground holders of Gucci. Looks like YO24 is aware of Gucci behind her. Otherwise, I don't see why she would be constantly checking that back end. Well, maybe I shouldn't say I don't know why. Maybe it could just be for the sake of caution. I doubt it, though. Little bit of downtime, but time is running out for our participants. This zone is shrinking. The real estate options are shrinking, and time is of the essence. These players are going to be forced into their altercations, whether they like it or not. And on a map as open as Miramar, that could be 2 feet away or 200 feet away. This is definitely winding up to be a bloodbath of an endgame, with 42 players still up amongst 12 teams and only 50 seconds left before stage 5 begins. It's gonna be just so much action at once, and I think what I'm gonna try to do is get eyes on where I think that's going to be. So I think we'll get 2 different lines of Extreme Slayers angles here. We got Marty Z and YO24 here on both cams. And the reason being because YO24 has multiple members of LUNOX right in front of her. Actually, we'll switch. And YO24 has Vexana unawares. And it looks like the remainder of LUNOX facing off against another threat in front of them in the shape and form of Gucci. This is bad news for Vexana, very likely. And YO24 putting out a flurry of grenades, but Vexana not so easily fooled here. Uzi in hand, readily equipped. Uzi versus a UMP, and as you can see, Vexana is at full health, a slight advantage over YO24 at let's say about 80%. Oh, that could have been the takedown on Vexana if the shots to the foot were accurate, and that little bit of hesitation told Vexana all she needed to know, that her opponent had to reload, and it was going to be an easy takedown. Patience pays off. Well, look at this, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I'll tell you what, we'll get multiple fights here. Extreme Ice facing off on the main screen. We'll get it the other angle against Gucci Esports. Avocado. Ooh, well, the avocado has been spoiled right there and then. It's down to, pardon me, I guess that is it. Yeah, that is going to be it for Gucci. Gucci is out of there. So now we're down to 35 people spread across 11 teams, and all the while, off in the distance, it looks like Extreme Slayer's Marty might be in the thick of it here. And oh boy, trouble for old Scar of Galactics Esports. Looks like the Witchers putting the work in. And Mart's in the alt cam, able to get the takedown. And it looks like it might even be a push for Martz as a solo towards the remainder of Here's Esports. Yes, it is. Oh, and on the alt cam, Tres Ranchos in a distance altercation with a nice overwatch over members of the Witchers. But, oh boy, Mart Z, thank goodness that was a smoke. Otherwise, that could have been her undoing. Desperately in need of some meds, but what sort of space does she have between herself and, oh boy, here's Esports, and here's Werita with a monster nade bouncing like a trick shot almost, and did significant damage onto Martzi. And what that nade didn't do, Werita finished with her UMP. Nicely done. All right. The battle continues south of the zone between Extreme Ice and members of Tres Ranchos, where Maka pushes ahead of the team and out of the zone, where she's outnumbered and outgunned and still in a confidently aggressive position. That nade, slightly overthrown, could have been the undoing for VKY, but ultimately not. VKY at half health. AGMC coming up from the side. Maka unprepared for 3 different angles of confrontation and ultimately is taken down. But that's not it for the Tres Ranchos. Tres Ranchos still has Riz, Isa, Cassie, and Michelle. A hailstorm of utilities being thrown out. And Cassie cooking up more where that came from. Nice takedown on VKY. And it's actually going to be a third party from Phantom Reborn. This spells a real opportunity for Tres Ranchos for some easy elims that they didn't even earn. But no time to waste. It's going to be a revive on her fallen teammate Isa. But time is of the essence because Phantom Reborn has blood on the mind, coming in for a third party from hell. And this has essentially Cassie and Michelle and a weakened Isa against a fully healed 4-piece of Phantom Reborn. Isa able to get that first aid off in time, actually fairly comfortably. And I think the Ranchos are going to try to use this opportunity to rotate, but that could be problematic. Look, we have the entire playing field here in our camera view. We got LUNOX off in the distance, facing off with members of Phantom Reborn beneath them, and off to their side, members of GTHESIS. We got ourselves a 4v4, v3, v3. 14 people spread across 4 teams. Cassie coming in for an angle over members of GTHESIS. And we're hearing nades being put out. Oh, the molly crashing on Michelle and sending her down to the ground, leaving Cassie and Isa as the hopes here. Cassie going to try to enshroud her teammate in a cloud of smoke, use what utility cover she can. Remember what I said at the beginning of round 2. When geographical and compound cover far between, those utilities can be your saving grace. But Isa, I don't know if it's going to be her saving grace. Well, she is swarmed upon by Phantom Reborn members of the Steelers in North Carolina summer. Putting out the shots is actually Cassie coming in with some third, well, I guess off-angle assistance. And unfortunately, it's not going to be enough. And just like that, we've got multiple altercations here on the board as Phantom Reborn gets third party by GTHESIS. Novita trying to retaliate with a nade of her own. 222 barely swallowing any damage from that. Amali crashing down alongside that, getting so close to the mark, but not quite hitting where it needs to. All the while, we've got members of LUNOX facing off against GTHESIS as well. It's a tough rotation into this new zone for GTHESIS as well as for LUNOX. But for the high ground 2-piece, who are both outnumbered and outgunned, Paula and Novita really have the prime real estate location here. And as I say that, I notice the zone has shifted away from them. But with it being this much open zone, I don't really think a late rotation into this next zone is a bad idea. Especially considering how close LUNOX is creeping towards GTHESIS. If Paula and Novita just laid low... Oh, that nade's crashing. Boom! Novita's down. Paula's taking a load of damage. Paula desperately needing to heal up. And talk about geographical cover coming in clutch. Paula exemplifying it beautifully. Heals up with the medkit. But, oh, swarmed upon, and ultimately that medkit could have been for nothing there. That's going to leave GTHESIS down to a two-piece of 649 and 222 unless they are able to secure some revives. But the Hellfire crashing all around them. And here we have it. 222 is the final hope. Made her final stand, but it was not enough. And ladies and gentlemen, that's game over. What a phenomenal, phenomenal performance any way you look at it. LUNOX Esports coming in and just dominating round 4, putting up a very healthy 13 elims, and over half of those elims go to Vexana alone. That's a very, very heavy backpack, and she has the muscles for it. Hey, let's not discredit GTHESIS though. While it might not be overly elim intensive, there's nothing wrong with a 5 elim finish when you're getting second place to add on to it. That's 13 points for match 4 alone. Phantom Reborn, a strong finish. Maybe not very elim intensive, even less so than GTS, but that 6 or 7 placement points along with the 3 elims, it's almost double-digit point gain for round 4 alone for them. The Tres Ranchos, again, another situation where the Ranchos place lower but have a higher elim count, and ultimately faring a little bit better than Phantom Reborn's 3rd place finish is Tres Ranchos in 4th with 8 elims. We got 5th place going to the Witchers, but only 1 elim going to Dr. Miami. 6th place going to belong to Team HEARZ with 3. Extreme Ice in 7th with 5. We got SOFOKE but in 8th place, but 0 elims. They're going to get a little bit of placement points, but no elims to add to it. Extreme Slayers in 9th place with 3. GALACTICS, a tough go of it this time, 10th place with 1. The Darkside Knights in 11th with 5. 4 of those 5 going to Moni alone. Gucci in 12th, but with a big old onion for kills. Elevate ABG in 13th with 0. And an unfortunate last place finish. The Queen has fallen all the way down to 14th place with only 1 elim going to Nia. But, ladies and gentlemen, we still have one more round. That's right, one more round of action, mayhem, and strategy ahead of us. We've seen our participants on all the maps. We've had our first do-over, but now it's time to conclude the night where it all began. I am, of course, speaking about the very first map introduced to the game, the one that our participants should be most rehearsed on, Erangel, as we return for our 5th and final match of the PUBG Mobile Ivy League Phase 3 Day 1 in just a few short moments. Stick around, we'll be back soon. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our fifth and final round of the night for the PUBG Mobile Ivy League Phase 3 Day 1. And we are concluding the night the same way we began, which is, of course, with the very first map ever introduced to the game, Erangel. Everything we need to say about Erangel, we already got out of the way in round 1, and so we don't really need to talk too much about that for this round. I will say, you know, that this flight path, much like our last match, is about the most ideal path that our participants could hope for. But, again, we are entering this match with 14 teams, so it could be a little bit of the same story as last match, where we might be left with a little bit of a more stagnant first half. But as, you know, we have seen throughout the last 6 years of PUBG Mobile Esports, as we've seen throughout the night, as it will be seen at the end game today, if we are left with a slower start, a more passive early game is going to mean a lot more bloodbath warfare come in game. All right, let's get it. So starting off, we're catching eyes on members of Extreme Ice. They're dropping in the Sanhok region, and they don't really have any nearby threats, but up north where Tres Ranchos are, it looks, pardon me, I guess the Sanhok region is going to be contested between Tres Ranchos and Queens Esports, actually. And as I say it, Queens Nia wasting no time and wrecking into Rizza. So we're going to get both sides of this altercation on the board. Okay. So, Abyss creeping a little bit closer to some assistance with her teammates here. Meanwhile, Maka, very under-equipped here, holding on to a knife and a Scar L, does acquire a nice little 7.62 automatic there at the end of that. I'm not really sure why she had the knife out as her primary at that moment, but regardless, they are definitely a little spread out for comfort for it being so early game. As you can see, Michelle and Abyss holding off alternate positions around the hilltop. Michelle does seem to be engaging here and now. I'm going to check the rest of the map here, make sure we're not missing anything, and we are not. This is the closest thing to an altercation, but take notice on the alt screen that while Queens and Tres Ranchos focus in on each other, it does leave an opportunity, if Darkside Knights can get properly looted, to maybe pull a northbound third-party attack on Queens and Tres Ranchos. Regardless, Cassie taken down in the distance, leaving it up to Michelle and Maka here. We're going to switch the alt cam back over to Abyss, as Michelle and Maka are the remaining hope for Tres Ranchos. It looks like Maka is a bit further off, and does catch a line of sight on Abyss, just dealing out a onslaught of bullets, but not before Abyss secures a thirst and retreats to a position of cover. So without that takedown, you know, while it may be early game enough to where if Abyss only has level 1 armor, that may make a significant difference. But let me switch over to Abyss on the alt cam. Yeah, she's got a level 2 vest, half damage, but it still took her down to about a third of her overall health. Luckily for her, she's got some bandies and some boosts to bring her right back up. And to add to it, the Tres Ranchos are very outnumbered 2-1 here, so I think Abyss feels fairly comfortable that she's not going to get pushed while she's trying to med up. And just a bit of the waiting game here. And Michelle putting out distance shots with an Uzi. You don't always see it, but when you do, I mean, if that takedown was, you know, she got a legit takedown with an Uzi from that far off, that would be worth a clip for sure. Oh my goodness. Tay putting a lot of bullets out towards Maka, and for a second I thought Michelle was sending out retaliatory fire. It was actually Tay's teammate here. It's Abyss coming in from the off angle, and boy, did Michelle ever see that coming from a mile away. And just puts that Uzi spray, 35 round, or I guess 25 round clip, no extended, but every bullet counts. Alright, switching over to Cashew, trying to get a little bit of distance close between herself and her fallen teammate Abyss, all the while providing some cover fire against Michelle from securing a thirst. It could potentially give Tay a little bit of time here to pull an off-angle rotation, so it might actually serve a decent purpose, especially if Tay can get over to Abyss to secure a revive. Tell you what, we're going to switch over on this cam here to Cashew, and we'll get back on Michelle on the alt cam. Yeah, this is just a bit of a standoff. The roadway dividing these two, but take notice here. Nia has a nice angle here that if Maka doesn't know, I think Nia would actually be out of the line of sight from Maka. So she'll be able to see Maka if she passes through that window and maybe even catch her unawares. However, it's not like Maka is here without any backup. She's got Michelle just one house over, but Maka did take a decent amount of damage there, being reduced down to just above half health. Damage dealt outwards towards Cashew as well, but Cashew with plenty of space to heal up. The same cannot be said for Maka and Michelle. I actually really love the spread that Queen's Esports has. Maka with a takedown on Cashew before being retaliated on by Michelle here. Oh boy, it's going to spell trouble. Or pardon me, before being cover fired by Michelle, but it's not enough. Michelle trying to get her final stand-in, gets a takedown on Nia, but ultimately outnumbered, outwomaned, and outgunned, and sent back to lobby. It was a tough one, but the Queens come out victorious and will carry on as a full four-piece with 4 elims to their name. It's a very healthy start for them. Now, what is the remainder of this playing field looking like? A little bit of a spread. We can see, definitely see some congestion forming in the southeastern portion of the zone between members of Phantom Reborn and the southbound threat in Galactics. Now, Galactics have a little bit of slack in the rope to make up for after last match, and same can be said for Extreme Ice. Extreme Ice stuck in between a rock and a hard place, and that rock and hard place is both going to be from members of GTHESIS. Now, it does seem like GTHESIS might be a bit more concerned with positioning, and understandably, as we are still in just the very first stage of the final match of the day. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, if you are just now tuning in, this is our 5th and our final round of the PUBG Mobile Ivy League Stage 3, or I guess Phase 3, Day 1. Now, of these 16 teams participating over these next 2 days, 10 teams will advance on to the finals to face off against the other advancing participants from earlier stages, where they will all duke it out for that championship prize pool, $500 on the line. And ladies and gentlemen, North American Scrims is responsible for organizing, orchestrating, and basically putting on this entire event. So be sure, oh my goodness, that is a tough go for Victoria on Team HEARZ, and not here a full 4-piece team of Extreme Ice coming from behind. Oh, but revenge served quickly as VKY is brought down to the ground. Natty swallowing a lot of bullets as well, being reduced down to below 1/4 of her overall health. Going to try to heal herself up before getting a revive on her teammate. But boy, here comes the looming threat. An aggressive push by Rarita. A very aggressive push. What is going on? What is HEARZ Esports doing? It almost seems like they're sacrificing everything they worked hard for here in a very aggressive and vulnerable push forward onto Extreme Ice. And Extreme Ice, in a battle of patience, their patience pays off. They had all the advantage, all the compound cover, and 2 different lines of sight. That was a very faulty push, and it seems almost unreflective of their gameplay before this, but Extreme Ice quick to take advantage. Well, we've got the Phantom Reborns here driving somewhat close to the overlying threat in LUNOX Esports. Whether or not that's going to come in any contact, I doubt it.
Well, it's potential. With it being this much open field, LUNOX is probably caught in a line of sight on Phantom Reborn already, and I'm guessing they have chosen that there's a little bit too much distance to be attempting to try to get a takedown at this point, because even if they were able to take Paula or Novita out, it would probably be with a little too much distance to push forward. Maybe a... Yeah, actually, I'm not sure why they didn't even fire, because if Paula had been knocked there, it could have probably amounted to a thirst. But, again, us spectators, we've got that viewer 20/20 vision. That is an advantage our participants do not have. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got, between the two primary platforms, about 30 viewers right now. Let me know in the chat, who's everyone rooting for? And don't forget to join the North American Scrims Discord server to be a part of all the phenomenal PUBG Mobile Esports events that they're putting on. And don't forget, Season 5 of Ivy League is going to kick off later this month, I believe. So if you haven't joined the North American Scrims Discord server, be sure to type in chat. Let them know that you want that server link, and I'll get that over to you. Alright, we're going to switch over to another member of Queens. It looks like a 2-2 split for Queens Esports, and you know what? As risky of a play as this is for it being, you know, the concluding portion of Stage 2, I think Queens have, for the most part, performed at a pretty elevated position. Remember, 10 out of the 16 teams will advance to finals, and I think Queens, even with that last match, you know, I think even with that, it's still going to be enough with the performance that they put on here to be in that advancement state, that advancing bracket. So I'm not too bothered by that 2-2 split, going out, scouting the playing field, relaying all that information back, getting a lot of feedback on enemy locations. Well, it looks like DSK could be in a bit of trouble here. They tried a 3-1 split, actually, and are facing the repercussions of that outlier. As you can see, their fourth player has been quickly knocked and thirsted, sent back to lobby. The Darkside Knights are going to have to carry forward as a three-piece, but no time to waste. As southbound, we have an altercation brewing between the Witchers and members of SOFOKE. So we'll get that on the main screen, and on the alt cam, we'll pull up this distance altercation between DSK and their southbound threat in Galactics. On the main screen, Shoddy Bay of the Witchers putting out a hellfire of utility throws here, but none seem to be hitting SOFOKE. And realistically, Shoddy is a ways from her team, and they entered this match as just a three-piece. So if Shoddy's eliminated, it will put a serious weakening on the Witchers. Maybe not the best move as a three-piece to do a 2-1 split. Certain context can call for it, though. Maybe not this early of a stage, in my opinion, but again, I'm no pro player, and these ladies are. Well, Shoddy finding herself in between a rock and a hard place. The rock is a rock, and the hard place is SOFOKE Esports and members of LUNOX. And boy, oh boy, Shoddy and Sithu with Dr. Miami right behind them, driving right next to LUNOX, and they do catch a line of sight. Victoria just in front. Bev trying to hold the off angle, may have just held down members of LUNOX quite greatly if they are not aware. But as I say it, Dr. Miami pulls a dangerous rotation between the two members of the Witchers, and somehow not a single... never mind. Vexana taking Shoddy right out of the equation there and then. Yeah, we're going to get on the alt cam the opposition in LUNOX up on the screen here. As you can see, Tokyo holding the off angle, Bev just beneath. And it's actually only going to be Vexana at the forefront here with the Witchers. She is the only one on the Witchers side of the river. Looks like Sithu and Shoddy gonna use this opportunity to retreat back and claim the positioning that once belonged to LUNOX. Oh, I withdraw that statement. They are not concerned with that building. It's about reuniting with the team. look at Shoddy Bay with some very optimistic Mini 14 single tap shots outward as the car is moving at full speed. If that was a knock, that would have been the most impressive play of the day. But let's just give a moment to acknowledge the level of gameplay that these ladies are putting out here. I mean, utilities that you are not going to find in North American esports almost ever. And I mean this, you know, not to be toxic to my own region or anything. I mean this for the simple fact that it is blatantly true. Most of these ladies' professional teams would run circles around the North American men's pro teams. I think this is, you know, such a cool thing about esports is there really is not a gender gap in skill. It just comes down to dedication and commitment, and some of these pro ladies teams would just dominate our heaviest hitting North American men's pros any day. You don't find nade elims like this in a North American scrim almost ever. So I just want to give a huge shout out to these phenomenal teams and the elevated level of effort and gameplay that they've put forth in this event. All right, we're catching eyes on LUNOX on the main screen, and on the alt screen we'll have Extreme Slayers, their closest opposing threat. Tokyo doing some drive scouting here. Vexana of LUNOX just wrecks hell into Dolly of Extreme Slayers. Dolly swallowing so much damage, but not quite enough to take her down. Bev very close by too as well, but not with a line of sight on the opposition just yet. And ooh, Avocado of Gucci Esports coming in with a third party that Bev was not expecting whatsoever, bringing LUNOX down to a three-piece of Vexana, Tokyo, and Victoria. Vex preparing a nade, just waiting for a line of sight to make use of it. But look, we have another threat coming in the distance. I'm going to pull that up on the alt cam. The threat is in the shape and form of Phantom Reborn. Not too much distance. They might be able to catch a third party on it. Meanwhile, Extreme Slayers putting the hurting in as Vexana and Bev are both down. Victoria and Tokyo are the final hopes. It looks like the revive on Bev has been successful. Will Vexana be as fortunate? We'll have to wait and see. Oh, but look at this. The shots coming outwards from the Phantoms Reborns. It's got Novita at the hilltop, giving some overwatch and cover fire onto members of DARKSIDE Knights below. And it looks like DARKSIDE, a member of DARKSIDE, out of the frying pan into the fire, driving right over to elevate. And here we have it. Gucci, all that progress made, it looks like they tried to make an aggressive push forward and maybe a little bit rash or potentially maybe a little too hesitant on the push. Regardless, I think it's safe to say that this push is unsuccessful. No elims for Gucci Esports, and matter of fact, they lost the member who did the knocking. Meanwhile, off in the distance, Galactics and Queens face off. Who is that from Queens that's at the forefront? It's going to be... Oh, boy. All right, well, now it's a standoff with ABG. It's a takedown on their teammate Faith by Beam of DARKSIDE Knights. And, oh, boy, Beam. Will Beam be able to... Oh, my goodness, just dodged the vehicle by the hair on her head. It barely missed her. However, she swallowed so much damage, not expecting it, and she is knocked by over the cover fire, and Beam does secure the thirst onto Tokyo. What a absolute final stand, but with no health left. It was only a matter of time before she was picked off, and those shots she put out were a honing beam for her location, but still, it was not without purpose. She got that last elim, made her final message heard. Look at this, Extreme Ice, still a full four-piece with 6 elims already on the board, but now we got BKY being just swarmed on by multiple members of Extreme Slayer. She's taken down, leaving AGMC, Natty, and Jazz up at the forefront, trying to provide some utility cover for their fallen teammate, and here we have it. YO24 and Dolly at the forefront of this opposition, and look at those third-party shots, off-angle shots, not third-party, off-angle shots from Marty Z and Tokyo. Oh my goodness, this is going to put AGMC in a world of hurt. For what was once a full 4-piece has been reduced down to just AGMC in a matter of moments there. Desperately trying to heal up with what bandages she can afford. You know Extreme Slayers is probably not too ignorant or naive to her location, but they have to exercise extreme caution here because, as you can see, still here on the playing field off to the western front remains Queen's Esports. So if Extreme Slayers get too bloodthirsty focusing in on XTREME, they would be vulnerable from multiple angles here. SOFOKE could get their back angle and their western front could be vulnerable to Queen's Esports. This is a tough scenario as it boils down to a bit of a waiting game, but looks like SOFOKE in the thick of it here. Mia trying to utilize what boost she can, but the Witchers running uphill. Dr. Miami literally almost counterintuitively giving her location away with that smoke. Sometimes smokes are advantageous, sometimes they can give up your location when it wasn't even known before. Mia, with what was a fairly clear line of sight on Dr. Miami, maybe that advantage is lost at this point with that little bit of high ground, but with Glitzy and Robin still at the forefront, it could spell trouble for the Witchers still. Queen's driving aggressively into the thick of it. Look at that nade landing onto Tokyo before Queen's land... oh, pardon me. It's the Witchers landing the finish on YO24. Nico Robin downed. This is a Witcher's onslaught in a few short moments. They went from only having one Elim on the board to getting 3 more knocks in a matter of 30 seconds. They have secured that second Elim already, and now it's bloodbath warfare. The Queens swimming in a pool of Phantom Reborn members as Nia, the sneaky grass snake, getting her takedown, giving herself her 5th elimination and the team's 8th. This Queen's Esports, even as a 2-piece, just absolute berserkers. And as I say it, I cast a curse Nia to the prone zone, send her right on back down to the land of the knocked. Meanwhile, Galactics, who was able to secure that takedown, have this opportunity to use to work their way into the zone as a full 4-piece with 4 Elims on the board. Cashew, the nut, has been cracked as Hellfire crashes on her, the nade taking her out of the equation. We don't have time to waste. We got AGMC, the last hope for XTREME, putting out an onslaught of nades. Meanwhile, Galactics facing multiple threats. And look at this. The nades crash down on Ari and Scar. 2 birds, 1 stone. Jay and Bree remain. Jay trying to come with some assistance here. Bree just holding off an onslaught of multiple teams here and doing so very successfully. Utilizing some vehicle cover as well. This could be the saving grace they need, but 1 nade could ruin everything. Add to that, that vehicle is not even exploded yet. It could spell trouble. That vehicle cover could be a ticking time bomb. Ari is taken down from the side by 222. Look at this. GTHESIS coming in with a nice spread here. So close to one another, but far enough away to get those extra lines of sight. Jay is now down. Scar's down. It's all on Bree. Can she stick this first aid off? This tree could be her saving grace, but boy, it's gonna need a little bit more than that tree. That tree plus maybe a little luck, and Bree putting out a utility, trying to get a takedown, doing some significant damage to 649, but it's not enough. And 911 putting out the nades that seal the deal. All 3 taken out right then and there. 911. Someone call 911. And now we're down to our final 4 teams. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a 4v1v1v1. This is GTHESIS as the final full team here on the playing field. This is GTHESIS' match to win with full numbers in their advantage. It's like being the big stack at an in-game poker match. You just have the ability and the numbers to bully. Well, look at this. 1 member for SOFOKE, Mia at the low ground. High ground being held by XTREME's AGMC, and the off angle being held by the final Witcher, Sithu. Meanwhile, there is a full 4-piece of GTHESIS just dealing out a hailstorm of bullets and hellfire here. J8 being shot down to dangerously low health, and the low ground holder in SOFOKE's Mia able to capitalize, get her second elim and the team's third. Not only that, but the additional placement points by working her way up to third place for her team. All right, a 4v, or I guess a 3v1v1. We got GTHESIS, SOFOKE, and Extreme Ice in our final end game of the day here. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our showdown. Let's get it going. Mia putting out the fires through a little spray and repack. The smoke ultimately works against her, blocking her line of sight on the opposition, and the deed is done. This was undisputably a GTHESIS match to win. Once we reach that end game and all the oppositions remaining, all 3 remaining opposing teams were all down to solos, GTHESIS could do the math. They could read how many teams were there and how many players were up. They knew exactly what scenario they were in, and they knew how to exercise that advantage in full form, not waste a single moment, and absolutely bully the remainder of the playing field. It was executed perfectly. And for that reason, GTHESIS is going to get that gold medal chicken dinner on the tip of their tongue finish, and do so with an extremely healthy 8 elims. Get this, half of those elims go to 649 alone, and that is going to be a healthy 18-point gain for match 5 for GTHESIS. Extreme Ice, ain't nothing wrong with silver if you're putting up 8 elims with it. That is going to be a nice 16 or 17 points for them as well. SOFOKE working their way up to third, and really thankful for that final effort from Mia, who not only got them that last bit of placement point boost, but that final kill still elim on the member of, I guess actually it was who she got was J88 of GTHESIS. So I mean, realistically, that last little performance on Mia's end made a huge significant difference in overall point dispersion. So the Witchers, hey, you know, entering the match as a 3-piece came in at a severe number disadvantage, less firepower, less lines of sight, less scouts, but while they weren't able to be very elimination intensive, it's very understandable as a 3-piece to play a more reserved approach. So the fact that they were able to work all the way up to a 4th place position, get those placement points and 2 elims on the board, it's honestly not a bad performance as a 3-piece. Give a little credit to GALACTICS here, coming in 5th place, doing so with 8 elims. That's going to be a much healthier gain in points than the 4th place holders in the Witchers. We got LUNOX in 6th. They did get the placement boost, but unfortunately 0 elims to add to the board. Not going to be a lot of points gained here for round 5. And put that into context, against a team like Queen's Esports, who, yes, they did get lower placement, but they have 8 elims to add on to that small amount of placement points. Realistically, Queen's Esports is going to be gaining a pretty decent number of points, and ultimately probably going to come out, okay, maybe not quite as many points ahead as GALACTICS got, but definitely more than LUNOX. So I think it's going to be a pretty helpful gain for them, even without that high placement. Let's give it up to Phantom Reborn. You know, hey, they were the last advancers in placement points and added 2 elims on the board, but some pretty impressive performances in earlier matches. Elevate ABG, never taking their eyes off the prize, keeping their head on a swivel all the way to the end of round 5. Not very impressive in terms of placement, but you know what? I think there's definitely something more impressive in terms of sportsmanship when other teams aren't finishing because they say, oh, well, we don't have a chance of advancing. Well, then there's the teams that stick it out and really learn from their mistakes in these matches. It's when you don't improve your gameplay when things are going well. You improve your gameplay when things are not. And that's where you can absolutely learn the most about your synergy, about your team, and where you need to improve the most. So teams that left because things were looking grim, missed out on a real opportunity, and it shows bad sportsmanship to the rest of the playing field as well as to the organizers. But give credit to where credit is due. That is not the case for Elevate ABG, who stick around and keep the action interesting the entire way through. Extreme Slayers, 10th place, but 6 elims on the board. This is definitely a more aggressive approach for Extreme Slayers than we saw in the previous matches. While they're not able to get the placement points, 6 elims is not anything to be too disappointed with. Unfortunately, if they had just held out a little longer, it could have definitely multiplied that quite a bit. Darkside Knights, 11th place, but thanking Beam for those 3 elims. Gucci, talk about good sportsmanship. Another team that maybe didn't fare as well as they would have liked today, still sticking it out and learning where they can improve, building their synergy, and showing a lot of respect for the event. 12th place with 1 elim going to Hoku. And I believe this is going to be our last 2 spots. Team HEARZ, 13th with 0. And lastly, the shocker for round 5, RANCHOS, who has performed at a pretty elevated level for the majority of the day, eliminated in last place with a big fat onion for elims. What's it going to spell for the overall standings? Well, you'll have to check in to the North American Scrims Discord server to find out when they are released. But in the meantime, I just want to say it has been an absolute honor and pleasure getting to commentate day 1 of Phase 3 for you guys, and I cannot wait. I absolutely cannot wait until the finals to see who all is advancing. Remember, these teams still have a whole nother day to sort of make up for whatever mistakes were made today. And y'all can tune in tomorrow on my boy Reaper's stream for day 2 of Phase 3. But in the meantime, it's been an absolute honor getting to cast this, getting to experience this absolute hellfire, just bloodbath warfare that these ladies are putting out, next level grenade throws, and I can't wait to see what tomorrow in the finals bring. Be sure to follow myself, RedEyes Casting, on all platforms, as well as join the North American Scrims Discord server for more PUBG Mobile Esports community tournaments just like this. And ladies and gentlemen, I'll be back at you on the next go around. You can also probably catch me potentially co-casting a portion of the PUBG Mobile Control League moving forward into this next season and beginning very soon. But in the meantime, we're going to go have a nice little in-game thank you for watching scene before we bring a raid over. We'll do some highlights and some clips. But until next time, I've been RedEyes. I hope you all have a great night. Have fun, be safe, and be kind to one another. GG's.